Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mukul Gupta. I am the head of operations for Indus Technologies. We are working since past 11 years and offering outsourcing services to a lot of digital agencies around the world. And in that way, we have been very fortunate to gain a lot of experience about what makes outsourcing successful and what are the things that you should basically avoid to do in order to ensure success. First and foremost, let me ask you guys, does anyone over here has any experience with outsourcing? Have you tried working with a vendor outside your own organization for your IT projects? You have? Oh, fantastic. Can you raise hands? Can I see how many of you have experience in outsourcing of any kind? Oh, fantastic. And what is the feedback? How many of you feel that you have been successful with outsourcing and you... Awesome. So for the rest of the audience, outsourcing basically is nothing more than farming out a service to a third-party organization. It may so happen that an organization which has, let's say, 5 different jobs, it may decide that, all right, out of these 5 jobs, we do not want to deal with one particular job. Let's have somebody else take care of that job. For example, let's say we are talking about a web design agency. It might want to say that, all right, we don't want to take care of any search engine optimization. Our focus is web design. So any search engine optimization job, we want to work with somebody else. Or it may so happen that it's an agency which has lots of projects and it has a project for which it has no manpower. A project comes in and it doesn't know whom to assign to. In such scenarios, it might go out and find other vendors with whom it would like to work. Now, this is all different ways of outsourcing. Now, what you need to understand is offshore outsourcing is just a subset of outsourcing. When you say about outsourcing, it does not mean that the work goes to a company which is based in India, the work goes to a company which is based in China, or any company which is offshore. Outsourcing simply means that you are working with a vendor outside your organization. In the end, outsourcing is simply a classic buy versus build decision. What happens is once you got to do something, you got to figure out that whether should I do it in-house, should I buy it, should I build it myself, or should I just buy it? The decision is, if so happens that you might find that the thing is very complex, you do not have the skills in-house for which you want to build it. Or you might find it, efficiency-wise, it is better if you get somebody else to do it. Or it so happens that you can do it, let's say at X pounds per hour, and somebody else can do it at X minus 5 pounds per hour. So it's a cost decision. So end of the day, when you're looking at any IT project, you need to think about whether I should do it in-house or should I just go out and buy it from a particular vendor. The other issue is about complexity of managing a relationship, which is also you need to think about whether in the classic build versus buy decision. When you're working with another vendor, there are contracts to manage. So that's something that you also need to consider about. But how do you know what are the different flavors in which you can understand whether the outsourcing in your company is working or is it failing? Failing in IT projects consists of 4 different things. There are 4 types of failures that might happen. The first and foremost is an outright failure where you do not achieve the objectives you set out to achieve. It happens that the project that you commission, it never got completed, your hands got burnt, you got no work, you basically spoiled the money. That's an outright failure. That's something that can be avoided easily by following some best practices. The second is when you have a scaled down version of the product, it so happens that you commission, let's say, 500 hours of work. But it so happened that during the course of the work, you understood that, all right, we can't deliver it in 500 hours. So let's scale down the scope of the project. Let's do something smaller. Third is we have a runaway project where you have a situation where you initially estimated the project for, let's say, $500, 500 pounds, and now it so happens that you have got no idea about when this project is going to get completed. Out of these 4 scenarios, the fourth one being the project being abandoned, where you get the work but you never use it because it's crappy. So out of these 4 scenarios, the most common scenario is absolutely outright failure and runaway project, which means you are in a project where you have to abandon it because the relationship is not working. You know that with that vendor, there is no way you can deliver the work product. So you simply drop the project. Or in a scenario, you have a runaway project where the costs simply keep escalating. You commission 500 hours, it becomes 5,000 hours. You commission 5 days, it becomes 50 days, and still there is no end in sight. So these are the 4 different types of failures you will normally see in IT projects. Now, in our experience, there are basically 4 main causes of these failures. The first and foremost is the choice of vendor you are working with. Make a wrong decision over here and you're doomed from the start. The second is choosing an inappropriate outsourcing model. The third is communication failure. And fourth is staff attrition. Vendor selection. Selection of vendor is very important. You have to really think about which company you're working with. There are a lot of literature available online about doing due diligence. What you need to do is simply go to google.com, and let's say you're trying to outsource a .NET based project. You simply type in .NET India, .NET China, and you get a list of companies. But how do you benchmark it? How do you understand that which vendor you should basically be working with, which vendors to ignore? The trouble with internet is even smaller companies which have really no skill, they can design beautiful websites. So if you simply make the looks of a website a decision-making criteria, it wouldn't work. You need to look behind. You need to do a lot of analysis, a lot of research on the particular vendor you are trying to work with. One good way is you simply put in the company name and the name of the key executive on Google and see what comes up. The way social media has happened, a lot of people talk about bad experiences. So if let's say you're working with a vendor called XYZ Limited and the person is, let's say, Joe Doe, you simply type in John Doe and type in his company name, and you will see a lot of lists coming, and try to see what people are talking about this company, what people are talking about this particular person. If you see a lot of negative stuff going along, you know that this is not a person you should be working with. This is not a company you should be working with. But bear in mind that once in a while, every company also has its share of crappy customers. So if you find just one negative feedback, don't take it too seriously. It is very important that you discuss with the executive, you try to find out that what exactly has happened, and try to get an answer from them, why exactly this customer has complained in this online forum. Secondly, before you even send out your scope document, you should ask for NDA, non-disclosure agreements, to be signed, and you should ask them to send the standard copy of their contract. You should go through their clauses, look at what clauses they're offering in their contract. Is there something that they're trying to fool you with? Is there any contract that you feel, is there any clause that you do not feel comfortable with? If the company is genuine, it would definitely have a template of a standard contract, and it would be happy to send it across to you for you to take a look at. The effort you spend over here, the time you spend over here is going to save you a lot of time in the days to come. So it is very important that vendor selection process you take very, very seriously, very carefully. It is very important to ask for at least 3 client references and speak to these clients. When speaking to these clients, you should always evaluate client references in the context of your own assignment. For example, if you are looking for an e-commerce website and you ask for a client reference, the company has given you reference of a customer for which you designed, let's say, a 5-page website. That's no good to you. You got to speak to customers with whom the company has done a work in similar lines of business. Only then it makes sense. The most important thing about selecting a proper vendor is you need to select a vendor which is specialized in the area in which you are trying to work. So don't work with a generic provider. Don't work with a vendor which works in 5 different segments. Work with a vendor which specializes in what you are trying to outsource, because it's only then you will get true value. The other important issue that we find in outsourcing is a lack of control. A lot of companies say that we do not know what's happening. We do not know what's going on in our project. We get an update once every 5 days, and then we see that it has gone in the wrong direction. There is no visibility into day-to-day operations, what is happening on your project, who is doing on what is happening, and things seem completely lost. It's just simply like some projects are simply like a headless chicken running around. You've got no idea what's happening. There are companies which would not involve you in key management decisions. For example, they would not let you choose which developers, which people are working on your assignments. They would not let you know. The way these companies basically interact is that they interact in a black box model, which means you've got a single point of contact in that company and you do not know basically what's going on behind it. Similarly, in this situation, what happens, it's easier. You understand that, okay, I've got only one person to deal with and everything is going to go fine with me. But from this comes the lack of control, because you really do not know what happens. If someday resources are dropped from your project, resources are replaced from your project, you have no way to track. The way to solve it is adopt a wide